Authorities are calling it a successful roundup of alleged child sex offenders, but it also shows how widespread that crime is in North.
Good evening, Stacey. 60 children were rescued in this 2-week operation that spanned Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco counties. 60 children taken out of incredibly dangerous situations.
Around 11:43 p.m., radio traffic cracked across Mogadishu with half-finished warnings, sealed cargo, muffled cries, a customs code no one could clear. By the time the Indian Ocean wind swept over the cranes, a joint task force linking the FBI, ICE, the Somali police force, and NISA was already moving toward one container that should never have existed. The codename was Operation Salt Lantern. For 19 nights, analysts from ICE Homeland Security Investigations, the FBI, and Somalia's Ministry of Internal Security had watched the same pattern repeat at Mogadishu port. Containers logged as powdered milk, unloading delays that lasted exactly 27 minutes, and inspection waivers signed after midnight by Director Ebshir Nur Warsaim. Nothing external. Internal. The first alert did not come from a satellite, a drone, or a whistleblower speech. It came from a nurse in Hodan district who reported 3 dehydrated children brought to a backroom clinic with identical blue fiber dust on their clothes, the kind used in marine insulation. That detail dragged the case from rumor into motion. Within hours, DOJ coordinators in Washington were briefed on a covert support role, while field teams in Somalia locked the location map around one city, Mogadishu. Every major move would begin there, end there, or circle back there. The port was the center of the wound. By 11:51 p.m., unmarked vehicles rolled past Kilometer 4 and cut toward the harbor through the corridor smugglers called Blue Spine, a stretch feeding the docks from Makkah al-Mukarrama Road. On paper, the target container belonged to a respectable charity distributor called the Barwaco Relief and Nutrition Initiative. Its logo showed smiling children and sacks of grain. Its paperwork named clinics in Baidoa, food depots in Beledweyne, and orphan support centers near Garo. The seals looked legitimate. The customs tax stamps matched prior filings, and 6 different cargo manifests tied the shipment to relief stock cleared through the Mogadishu Port Authority. That was the front, but one discrepancy kept scratching at the evidence. The shipment weight exceeded the declared total by 2,140 kilograms, yet no custom scanner image existed in the Atlas Manifest platform. Even stranger, the missing scan was replaced by a clean timestamp created 8 seconds after the original vanished. Someone with terminal access had reached into the system and erased the machine's memory. At 11:58 p.m., Somali tactical officers advanced through Gate 4, while FBI and ICE personnel stayed in the intelligence-linked support lane behind them, exactly as the joint rules required. No sirens, no flood of lights, just boots, clipped commands, and harbor machinery groaning in the dark. Pier 6 held the container. It sat between 2 legitimate shipments from Mombasa and Salalah, painted with relief markings and tagged CAXU-1187-4. A forklift had been parked across its doors as if a lazy operator had forgotten it. That detail fooled no one. The forklift keys were still warm. One unit peeled off toward the administration wing. Another cut the power to bay cameras covering the east stacks. A third circled the reefer lane in case the port director's private guards tried to punch a route open toward the coast. Before the first bolt was cut, a boy's cough carried through the steel. The breach team tore the exterior seal and yanked the doors wide. What looked like rice pallets filled the first third of the space. Stacked in disciplined rows, stamped with Arabic lot codes and UN aid markings. Then a Somali officer struck the floor with a pry bar and heard a second sound beneath the metal, hollow and wrong. That sealed level raised suspicion. They ripped out the false pallet deck and exposed a welded inner compartment running the full length of the container. Air came out hot and stale. One flashlight beam slid across cramped faces, plastic water bladders, nylon restraints, and a hand-painted number grid on the wall, 1 through 52. Each mark crossed once in charcoal. The hidden chamber was packed with children. Some were barely old enough to speak. The others clutched younger ones against the shudder of the shipyard noise. 4 handlers had been wedged into a rear pocket behind the insulation, wearing aid vests and carrying sedatives labeled as pediatric fever medication. What seemed like a smuggling bus turned into something darker. Medics pushed in first. Oxygen masks followed. Somali police officers lifted children out in relays, while NISA personnel photographed every latch, every rivet, every strap point. Outside, the sea air hit the rescued group like a second shock, and one girl kept repeating a single word in Somali until an interpreter realized she was naming Bosaso. That opened the next thread. At 12:06 a.m., synchronized arrests began far beyond the dock gates, yet still inside Somalia's map. In Kismayo, officers raided a cold storage warehouse linked to Barwaco Shipments and found 11 forged vaccination cards. In Bosaso, a rented office above a shipping broker yielded 41 passports, most blank, and a wall map marked with red circles at 7 ports. In Baidoa, a so-called shelter tied to the same network emptied out 14 minutes before police arrived. A leak was active. Garav units intercepted 2 trucks carrying boxed blankets that concealed restraint loops and satellite phones. In Beledweyne, local police pulled 9 children from a transit house whose caretaker insisted she worked for a nutrition campaign. Every road ran back toward Mogadishu, toward the port, toward the man whose signature appeared at the bottom of every clearance. Director Warsam had not answered his phone for 23 minutes. Inside the breached container, a forensic officer found the artifact that broke the case open. It had been hidden under a maintenance panel near the rear axle frame, wrapped in wax cloth and stiff with salt. A narrow ledger bound in cracked blue vinyl, its pages numbered by hand. Not digital, physical, meant to survive fire. The entries were not names at first glance. They were cargo codes, birth timings, fuel slips, and initials. Then the pattern surfaced. 17 shipments over 8 months. Ages in the margin. Route fragments to Kismayo, Bosaso, and onward staging points. Bribes to gate supervisors. A 3-letter mark, ANW, repeated beside expedited clearances and blackout instructions. The ledger did not accuse, it documented. One page listed shell entities in a cascade. Barwaco Relief and Nutrition Initiative, Horn Wellness Corridor, an East Africa Pediatric Supply Bureau, Juba Community Freight, and 5 more fronts stitched across Somalia's aid routes. Another page referenced Blue Spine Ready beside a payment entry and the phrase Lantern on Harbor. Operation Salt Lantern had just found its mirror inside the trafficker's own records. At 12:13 a.m., word spread outside the port before officials could shape it. Families pressed toward the security barriers. Dock workers froze unloading lines. Motorbikes clogged the roads near the harbor, and rumors burst through Mogadishu faster than facts. Disease outbreak, piracy return, foreign raid, hostage cargo, missing aid convoy. Fear filled the gaps. The Somali Ministry of Internal Security tried to contain the perimeter while ambulances moved under escort toward hospitals in Mogadishu. Or doctors at Banadir Hospital prepared emergency wards. At Aden Adi International Airport, extra police were posted in case someone from the network tried to bolt for Nairobi or Dubai. Then the screens died. At 12:19 a.m., the Atlas Manifest platform crashed across the port. Camera feeds looped the same 87 seconds of empty corridor footage. Customs badges stopped validating. Even backup logs on an isolated server began to overwrite themselves with blank entries. For 2 breathless minutes, it looked as if the network had reached into the port and turned the whole operation blind. That was the cyber strike. It hit with precision, not panic. A wiper payload targeted inspection records, gate access history, and berth assignments tied to Pier 6. The attack also jammed outbound alerts long enough for one convoy on the outer road to reverse and vanish near the old fish market. But the system left a scar. FBI cyber specialists working in the support cell with Somali technicians and NISA analysts traced the malicious command through a spoofed router path into a leased Hormuz telecom relay and back to a hardwired terminal in Office 4B of the Port Administration Building. The username attached to the session was not the director's. It belonged to Yusuf Dahir, deputy head of compliance. Dahir had spent 6 years presenting himself as the quiet man who fixed paperwork discrepancies and calmed foreign auditors. The ledger named him only twice, but the trace gave him away completely. He had authorized 68 temporary gate passes, cleared drivers who did not exist, and triggered the server wipe the moment Pier 6 was breached. Betrayal had a desk, a password, and a view of the harbor. When Somali officers stormed Office 4B, Dahir was gone. His workstation was still hot, one drawer hanging open, a family photo shattered underfoot. A second trace hit moments later from a burner handset moving south toward Lido Beach, routed through 2 towers and then a third near the airport road. The handset was traveling with Director Warsam. The port director had not fled immediately after the raid began. He had waited. He had tried to see whether the cyber wipe would erase the trail and buy him another corridor, another ship, another night. When the trace survived, he ran. At 12:37 a.m., a convoy intercepted his armored SUV near the road linking Lido and the airport approach. He was not alone. Yusuf Dahir sat in the rear seat with a laptop bag, 3 passports, and a USB device containing partial customs backups. In the front console, officers found $240,000 in vacuum-sealed currency bundles and a draft departure manifest for a private charter request. The director said nothing when they pulled him out. He stared back toward the dark line of Mogadishu port as if the cranes might still rescue him. No shouting, no speech, just the collapse of a man who had built his power on signatures, benevolent press conferences, and the assumption that cargo paperwork always looks more believable than frightened children. By dawn, the Joint Task Force had connected the 17 shipments to a cross-border trafficking architecture, hidden behind aid branding, port privilege, and local intimidation. Interpol, UNODC, and Somali investigators began expanding the case file. Every sealed container in the Barwaco chain was frozen. Every warehouse key was flagged. Every midnight waiver signed by Warsam became evidence. The city did not celebrate loudly. Mogadishu absorbed the news the way wounded places often do, through whispers, mosque courtyards, hospital hallways, and long silences at breakfast tables. People trusted the port because the port fed the capital. They trusted aid markings because children were supposed to be safest near them. They trusted officials because collapse is exhausting, and trust is cheaper than constant suspicion. Then one container split that illusion apart. By late morning, 52 children were under protection, 17 shipments were exposed. And the director of one of Somalia's most important maritime gateways was in custody beside the deputy who tried to erase the record. The harbor reopened in stages, but nothing about it looked ordinary anymore. Every bolt seemed heavier. Every manifest felt like a test. If a port can hide children behind relief markings, trust becomes fragile. If a ledger can survive a wiped server, truth remains harder to bury than power expects. If betrayal can sit inside the office that stamps the cargo free, what does safety even mean when the next container reaches Mogadishu?